Well, happy Saturday, folks. The real Captain Kirk here. We're live from One Bethlehem Plaza here in downtown Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. It's another gloomy Saturday here, but we'll take it. Again, a little bit of rain, about a quarter inch of rain here to wash out some of this crazy high pollen that we've had here in the east. Looking at drought status here as of today, again, about 59% of the country in dry to drought phases versus this time last year when it was really, really wet. Only 38% of the country. So average this time of year would be about 45% dry to drought. We did see quite a bit of improvement if we look from last year, again, moving into the Midwest, Missouri, those areas. Definitely the Corn Belt growing regions definitely improved drought conditions dramatically here over the last few months. Looking at severe weather here, we added about 124 tornadoes, 276 hail events, and 312 wind events. So an uptick in activity here. Has tornadoes and winds now the most in 14 years, and hail also up. Everybody's above average on these three categories. Hail is now, again, a bit more than last year. If we look at the 4-day severe weather outlook here, it's going to expand into this time of year. May, June, it starts to shift a bit, maybe up toward the upper Midwest. And we see that on Monday here with a pretty high risk for tornadic activity there in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa. So, again, something to watch here as we go into later in the week and even on Tuesday, spreading toward the east. We look at the ocean temperatures here. This is first maps versus last year. Again, so we basically have entered now a neutral phase. So we're out of La Niña and just kind of in a neutral. Models left pretty much show, again, kind of a neutral phase all the way through into winter. CFS kind of shows a little bit of maybe an uptick toward El Nino, but pretty much we're looking at an ENSO neutral event here. And this is important because it does impact the hurricane season. It's a hurricane season outlook that we issued a few months ago. But when you're in an ENSO neutral phase with some of these positive AMO, negative PDO, you tend to see kind of an East Coast, closer in East Coast threat with hurricane activity. So while we have it down a bit with 17 named storms from last year, again, I think last year at 18, but again, the threats are going to be East Coast of Florida, we think, versus the West Coast. So East Coast worst and New England, Northeast, Mid-Atlantic. And then secondarily, the North Central Gulf. So maybe okay for Southeast Florida here, but not so along the eastern part of the country here. Need to watch those tracks. And again, we produce a lot of severe weather reports, year ahead, short term, impacting hurricanes, every single zip code when they landfall. So again, neat severe weather tools here at Weather Trends 360. Look at last week's world summer here, ending here today, the 26th of April. It was a warm week, 5.1 warmer than last year, warmest in 35 years, second warmest in 40 years nationally, so much above average on that front. Unfortunately, also wet, 93% wetter than last year, wettest in 5 years, 8th wettest in 40 years, so above average on that front. Typically this time of year, warm and dry is good for retail seasonal sales, because outdoor activity and whatnot. So half the equation, warm was good, but the wet not as good. Very warm there in the UK and Europe as well. And again, down in Brazil, again, they continue to do relatively well with cool, wet conditions, which is good news for their crop conditions. Look at this week here. Again, hard to believe we're already talking May, so week ending 3 May here. Again, the U.S. overall, 0.8 warmer than last year, warmest in fourth warmest in 40 years, so another very warm week. A little misleading here. If you look at the map, inset map left there is temps versus last year. So Great Lakes, east, northeast, again, quite a bit colder than last year. So kind of a downward trend for those hot seasonal items. In fact, if we look at those hot 90 Fahrenheit days, we're down 39%, least in 6 years, 19th least in 40 years. So again, down off of last year's pretty more extreme hot conditions. 25% drier than last year, driest in 7 years, 18th driest in 40 years. So some good news here is not so dry here in the south central U.S. and the upper Midwest. So it looks like a lot, but again, on a national scale, it's not as much. But again, wet for the folks there in the heartland. We look at next week here, again, week ending the 10th of May. Temperatures very similar to last year, 0.3 warmer than last year, 12th warmest in 40 years nationally. But again, look at that map inset left here. Again, just the trend versus last year is much cooler in the Great Lakes, interior Northeast, Southeast, and the hot spots, the Pacific Northwest, Northern Rockies. So again, overall, those 90 Fahrenheit hot days across the country, this is an index, is down 62%, least in 6 years, 13th least in 40 years, so below average for those hot 90-degree days, which just impacts those hot seasonal categories, beverages and fans and air conditioners, things that we might have bought the last 4 or 5 years where we had a lot of 90-degree days, not so right now. Rainfall down 3%, driest in fifth wettest actually in 40 years, much above average. So still down a bit, but still very, very wet. So a little bit similar temps, wet. Again, yeah, it's an okay start to Q2 here for retailers, but not phenomenal on any level here. If we just aggregate these world 2-week trends here, so big map here now is temperatures versus average, and map inset left are trends versus last year. So theme is generally While it's still above average, again, the Great Lakes, eastern half of the country is cooler than the Pacific Northwest. In fact, we need to even watch for some frost here in the Great Lakes here this beginning of May, first few days of May. There's hinting at some frosty-like temperatures in Great Lakes interior Northeast. And then the rainfall aggregate here, again, we didn't blank out the entire oceans here, but again, lots of rain here in the U.S., from Texas into the Great Lakes, interior Northeast, and preset map versus average inset left. So with that, folks, we hope you have a great week ahead here, and again, we will talk to you again this time next week.